Who's been up to the lakeside before? You've been.
Yeah, I've been up.
Have you been up to the lakeside tasting? Who's been up there?
We've been lakeside.
We've been lakeside, but we haven't been in the building.
Yeah, we went to the lake.
Oh, you haven't been in the building yet?
No,
No,
we haven't been in the building. No.
So we're going to today.
Yeah, one of your team members took us up there. We actually stood at the lake and actually had a taste of at the rock that's up there at the lake.
Was the heart the special batch when you go on the
heart release?
Keepers.
So, we've hosted visitors here on site since the beginning, but part of shifting the focus from manufacturing to include agriculture and nature, we've spent a lot of time the last 10 years trying to open up Star Hill Farm.
Right. Yeah.
And offering experiences into nature. And one of those was, what if we built a tasting room for private select right on the edge of the water source? So folks like yourselves can start with your taste vision and design your perfect expression of Maker's Mark, but in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And did you stop the filming?
I'm gonna.
Middle West Spirits was founded in 2008, focusing on elevating the distinct flavors of the Ohio River Valley. Their spirits honor their roots and reflect their originality as makers, their integrity as producers, and their passion for crafting spirits from grain to glass. Their Michelin Reserve line reflects their story from the start to the bottle to your glass, with unique wheated and rye bourbons and also rye and wheat whiskeys. The Michelin brand is easy to sip. It might be a grain to glass experience, but I like to think of it as uncut and unfiltered from their family to yours. Tiny here to tell you about Whiskey Thief Distilling Company and their newly opened tasting room. Whether you are up for a farm-to-glass distilling experience on the Three Boys Farm in Frankfort, Kentucky, or an out-of-this-world tasting experience in Nulu, you won't be disappointed. At both locations, their barrel picks all day, every day, are like none other. Each location features stations with 5 barrels, each featuring their pot-distilled bourbons and ryes. Once the barrels have been thieved and tasted, you can make a selection and thieve your own bottle. A day at Whiskey Thief with their friendly staff and ownership will ensure you many good times with good friends and family. Remember to always drink responsibly, never drink and drive, and live your life uncut and unfiltered.
Drinking bourbon, sipping on some scotch. We get a little wild, but it's sure fun to watch. We love what we do, we're drinking every brew. Man, we talk some shit, but we're telling the truth. Yeah, we're the Scotchy bourbon boys, raisins in hell and making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy bourbon boys. We're here to have fun and we hope you enjoy. We're here to have fun.
So we are live on Facebook, just so everybody knows. So we started.
Oh, this is live. Okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be live.
So we all have to be good.
All right, okay.
I don't know, that dirty Mike story might not have been so good.
So I remember the story from Pat Steakhouse. Those aren't the Billy the Kid guns, right? That's
The James Gang?
yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
The James Gang. Yes. No, these are not the James Gang pistols, but we do have a family connection to the James Gang.
Right.
It was actually my 4 great-grandfathers' first cousin was Frank and Jesse James's mother's 4th husband, if that makes sense. and Jesse James never Jesse James never surrendered, but after the Civil War, but Frank James surrendered in Samuels, Kentucky, in the front yard of our land grant home, which is just outside Bardstown, in July of 1865. And we have the pistol. Frank James and a few others surrendered, and we have the pistol that Frank James actually handed over.
Yeah, I remember somebody said it was in a shadow box behind the desk, actually, but this isn't a desk, so.
Now, this used to be a desk.
Oh, did it?
This was my grandfather's office, where we're seated right here. This was his room. This is exactly where it all started. My grandparents in 1952 purchased about 300 acres of land for $35,000. They purchased this out of the way location because of the water source, which is where you all are going to have your tasting experience later today. We built that tasting room. We could never have picked a more difficult location to build anything. You have to trust me on that. There were no utilities up there, but that's the exclusive water source for every drop of whiskey that's ever been made here on site.
Wow.
And but he was Allison, if you hand me the picture of Bill Sr., this is him. Yeah, that one there. He was the tasting panel, right? And this is him. This is Bill Samuel Sr. in the 1950s. After he invested in the distillery, broke down each and every step of the process. He had a very clear taste vision, rich, creamy, balanced. Could you create a handmade bourbon, a full strength bourbon that you could hold on your tongue without the aggressiveness that was so much had defined the American whiskey category, including our family, which we had made whiskey in Samuels, Kentucky for 160 years. And they were very intentional in walking away from that legacy because they didn't believe in it. And they began again here because they wanted to make something they'd be proud of. They actually burned the recipe. Do you see that copper bucket over there?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, pick up that copper bucket if you don't mind. They had a ceremony here on site before they began and burned the 160-year legacy family recipe in that copper bucket, symbolic of their commitment to reimagine in many ways what bourbon could be. But he started making the whiskey in early 1954 and didn't have anything to sell until 1959. But this is Bill Samuel Sr. tasting the whiskey in those early years, as he sat right here at this table.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rare. I mean, you all would know. This is you all, I'm sure, and I was not aware of this. So from 1935 to 1995, okay, in Kentucky, how many new licensed distilleries were created in Kentucky?
Not very many. Probably just one.
Just one. That I'm aware of. Just one.
Yeah.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Food and Wine Magazine 3 or 4 years ago, when they did their big survey across all of the most notable whiskey leaders in the industry, they were asked to rank the most important bourbon brands of all time. And I think all but 2 that participated said Maker's Mark is the most important bourbon brand ever made. Because when my grandparents settled here in the 1950s, the industry was taking a nosedive.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I learned I think it was my second day of business school, that you never want to create something that no one in the world's interested in. And in the 1950s, there was zero indication that anyone would ever be interested in this idea of a more elevated bourbon. But they didn't have a commercial ambition, as in a traditional sense. If you could go back in time and talk to him at this table in the 1950s and get him to talk about what success looked like, it was not global. It was not big, brand, big juggernaut of a brand. He was a craftsman, which I know that term is thrown around a lot, but this is how I know he was a craftsman. Guess what he used to do on the weekends to relax?
Moonshine?
Just
Make furniture.
Okay.
He made this table. Wow. He made this table. He made the desk that I use in the next room. I have his bar stools that he had at his house. He had a farm in Bardstown. He made all of his beds. Like, you know, if you've ever met a craftsman or a craftswoman, they always obsess over whatever it is they're making. They're usually very methodical, very patient, and that's the way he was. So they were very patient to wait for their bourbon to age over time until it was ready. The the P&L was challenging. They didn't turn a profit for almost 30 years, if you can believe that. And he never took a salary.
Yeah. But
they cash flowed everything, waited year after year after year for the bourbon to mature over time, never sourced whiskey. This distillery, since the beginning, has been a single source of supply since day one. So we've never brought whiskey in from the outside, and we've never sold whiskey to anyone on the outside. And that's what I think this team here in the modern day, 72 years after the beginning, is proudest of, is how do you take what a lot of folks would say is the first craft distillery in America and stay true to who you are as you grow over time.
When we were first getting into this, when I turned 18, I turned 18 with Maker's Mark. And that was back in the day when 18 was legal and I was in college. But I will say that you guys consistently just made Maker's Mark up until
12 years ago.
Yeah, 12 years ago when you introduced the 46. And there was a lot of people in the industry like Michael Veach and Fred Minnick, yes, that were always talking about how awesome if you went beyond me and then and it's really cool. Although you've kept Maker's Mark with the private selection, you're still not doing 40 different things. You're still concentrating on the main brand with the 46, and then just a little bit branched out with the.
Well, what I would say, and I hope you get to, when you experience, in spite of not having power today, you experience.
Which is why it's a little dark in here.
Yeah, what we do here. Even though my grandparents are no longer with us, and even though they didn't have a commercial business in the traditional sense, they set extremely strong foundations. And even though they're no longer with us, their vision remains our North Star for everything we do. Their vision remains our guiding light for the quality and the consistency of the whiskey that we make and the way we've expanded. We've expanded here in a purposefully inefficient way by replicating, it's like we could never have chosen a more inefficient way to expand, but it's been, instead of building bigger stills, bigger fermenters, scaling up to reduce the cost, we did the opposite, which is we built mirror images of the original distillery. The reason my grandparents chose this site was the water source in connection to the growers. We still buy all of our corn and wheat from those same families, but we carry forward their vision, their legacy, and that's in everything, not just Maker's 46, but launching our first ever new to the world brand, Star Hill Farm, is very much pulled from their vision and celebrating whiskey. Yes, it's manufactured, but when you take it back, the whiskey in the glass comes from nature. I'm trying to better understand where flavor comes from. How do we start with the best possible ingredients? How have farming practices changed over time that have negatively impacted not just the environment, but flavor? How have varietals of grain changed over time? And the answer is a lot. So we have been on it's a commitment to get here today. 65, 70 years ago, there were no bridges. So to get here, you were driving through creeks to get here.
I believe it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Explains why we have to go around the barn.
Yeah, we better come in and there's a road and literally you're going straight at a barn and the road just goes
Around the barn?
You're going through the barn.
But they chose this site because they were deeply respectful of the idea that whiskey's agricultural, the water source. Today, the distillery is a National Historic Landmark. Sits on this. We have 2,000 acres in Marion County, Kentucky, 1,100 acres contiguous to the distillery. We obsess over his principles and process in the distillery, single source of supply, aging to taste. The whiskey, if we get to fill barrels today, if we get power back, the whiskey that we're dumping right now is aged to taste. Started as one man on a tasting panel. Today we have 30 individuals on our tasting panel, but the whiskey is 6 years, 8 months, 2 weeks, and like 3 days is what we're putting in the bottle right now. But we carry forward their vision in everything we do. The innovation, the values. You know, it was, I have to say it was a really proud moment for us to become in 3.5 years ago. Maker's Mark became the first, and I think we're still the only distillery in Kentucky's famed bourbon country that is certified as a public B Corp, a public benefit corporation, which is the highest standard of companies that live force for good values across culture and how you treat the team, sustainability. And then, of course, I hope the team can take you out into Star Hill Farm today and experience firsthand.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a regenerative estate. The only verifying body that can certify regenerative agriculture practices is an organization called Regenified. And Regenified is recognized by the United States Department of Agriculture, and they measure soil health. And
It doesn't work because of the back.
So right now he looks,
They're-
you look like you're, no. So you know when the news, like they're trying to anonymize somebody
oh yeah,
and you're just
But
a
that doesn't,
shadow.
but putting a light on it doesn't help.
You're
they wouldn't go outside. You want to go outside?
Better. We can also,
Yeah,
we
it's
can
better.
go walk outside. It's not raining.
Oh, yeah, it's all right.
Do a mobile.
I think everybody can hear and they know, what's going
Yeah.
on. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's going good. I was listening and I was really happy the sound is coming through
Yeah, the
perfectly.
sound-
So
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
you're saying.
And it's funny because the windows are lighting us up fine,
Yeah.
and you guys up fine. But because you're backlit,
yeah.
you literally you're just a shadow.
You know, the whiskey
So,
actually lives
well,
in
how
the
about
farm with
just-
That's mysterious.
Turn a little bit towards like Chris. There you go.
Or
Let's see
switch
what happens.
places with Chris.
All right, there you.
Hey, there we go. That's better.
Now
That's
you
good.
can-
Okay, and
Can you see it there? Can you
Yes.
see his face?
all right.
Yes, I can. And also, I can push this.
Just so you know,
Back
Rob,
into the shop.
I'm trying to be rude, but I'm actually sharing this. I
With
belong
a
to
bunch
like
of groups.
over
You're not-
three
he's
to
not
400.
texting.
Yeah, I'm not texting. I'm belong to over 300 to 400 different bourbon and whiskey groups across the world.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
the
So,
ones that like
That's
to
what
do
I'm
that,
sitting
yeah.
here trying to share it to get it out to all the people.
Oh good.
So
So that first
thing
segment, we'll just call that deep throat. Right?
Deep throat.
Wow. Well, it's all real, and my father, Bill Samuels Jr., who was president of Maker's Mark for 35 years, what he says is, with Maker's Mark, the bullshit's real. So many brands in any industry, they're invented by marketers, they're invented by agencies, and you start peeling back the layers, and there's usually not a lot of substance and authenticity. But here it's real. This brand came from the heart and soul of a craftsman and his wife. And as my dad said, the bullshit is real. But everything that we're doing, all the innovation, pushing forward at the experience here on site. My grandmother designed this entire campus. I have to be careful. I never want to offend the engineers. But engineers design manufacturing sites to be efficient, to optimize efficiency. And she was the one who said, let's celebrate the values of my grandfather's handmade bourbon in the design of the place. And if the place were to celebrate his vision, the place would become the soul. And before distilleries in Kentucky had ever formally begun to host visitors, she was the one who, because they didn't like traditional advertising. They thought traditional advertising was rude. Screaming the loudest to connect with a customer. So she said, there's no more endearing way to connect with a friend than to have them to your home. So she was the one who designed this entire campus, this entire property, much like you would design your home. So we carry forward her legacy, her vision for design in everything we do here with the experience. We're hosting world-renowned glass artist Dale Chihuly for an exhibition of the handmade artwork through early December, which is a really exciting moment. But when you get out on the farm, really spend some time exploring the regenerative agriculture and why does life in the soil matter for the environment and for flavor. And we have gone to great lengths, not just here on Star Hill Farm, but our agricultural footprint. We had no growth for 35 years here, but for the last 40 years, we've sold every drop we've had available. And our agricultural footprint in central Kentucky extends to almost 50,000 acres. And we have been working with 10 partner growers that grow our corn and our wheat on our behalf, and providing all of the education and resources and verification for all 50,000 to now be certified by Regenified as practicing regenerative farming practices. I think we're the only distillery in the world. So since the fall of 2023, all of the fresh distillate in our still house is certified as regeneratively grown and sourced.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. The 1964 resolution by Congress, people look at it and it was just a resolution, but the main thing of saying bourbon has to be made in the USA, I really feel that one part of the resolution, they had the rules and everything, but for places like yourself, or there can be different ownerships, but it kept what your family and other families in were, because why would you move it from here? But if you could make it someplace else, that they would have. But that, I think, was one of the most important things. And for your family, it had to be just, to be able to keep doing this today with those traditions, and not have any competition coming from China or whatever, because they can't.
With their principles. But, one of the hardest things in my experience is how do you innovate and push forward, but stay true to who you are, to stay true to the brand. That is very, very hard to do. But, Maker's Mark, my grandparents walked away from the T.W. Samuels legacy, not because they were rude or disrespectful, but to make space for something better. And the vision that they had was a flavor vision. It was a vision for community and being active in the community. It was based on design, and all of their principles are at the center of everything we do when we're at our best, even today.
So what makes your new brand, the Star Hill Farm brand, stand, or separated from the Maker's Mark, or stand out, or how is it different? I guess.
Well, Star Hill Farm whiskey is a wheat whiskey.
Okay.
But it's been, our family's made whiskey for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think so much of the legacy, at least in the modern era of whiskey in this country and all over the world, oftentimes the emphasis is right squarely on the manufacturing of the whiskey, which of course that matters. But we have been on a journey for the last 12 or 13 years, taking it back to nature, asking the questions around how farming practices have changed over time. And the reality is 99%, I'm told 99% of agricultural land in the world today is conventionally farmed, which is heavy, disruptive tilling, which destroys the topsoil, oftentimes monoculture, relying upon chemical inputs. So you have denuded soil, and it's detrimental to human health. It's detrimental to the environment, and you end up with ingredients that lack in character. So we have been, the celebration of Star Hill Farm whiskey is a celebration of nature as the maker. And it's similar if you talk to the great chefs, they all focus on, of course the cooking techniques matter, but it's how do you start with the best ingredients? Mm-hmm. So over the last 12 years, we have moved away from conventional farming, not just here at Star Hill Farm, but across all 50,000 partner acres. So there's no heavy tilling, integrating crop rotation, starting to reduce all the chemical inputs. working with the preeminent wheat breeders in America. There was a big moment about 60 years ago when the flavor in wheat was fundamentally taken out of wheat.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we want to bring the wheat back. So we, on Star Hill Farm, if you would have been here in early summer, we harvested the estate wheat that is for this Star Hill Farm whiskey. But we also have an experimental wheat plot with 20 different varietals in partnership with David Van Sanford, who's the director of wheat at the University of Kentucky. David Van Sanford has been in that role for 35 years. And he said, Rob, he said, Maker's Mark is the first company that he's worked with in his entire career that has asked him to focus on flavor. He spent his entire career optimizing yield
Yeah.
at the expense of flavor.
Yep.
Yes.
But not just the modern varietals of wheat, but really beginning to appreciate that the healthy soil, the life in the soil, the biodiversity in the soil contributes probably more to flavor than even the varietal that you plant in the ground.
We don't get the flavors and the nature without honoring and protecting the microbes that make up this world. I mean,
We're proud of this whiskey. This is a wheat whiskey. It's an annual release, celebrating nature as the maker.
Fantastic.
This wheat whiskey is a blend of 7 and 8 year old barrels, and really a proud moment that beyond Star Hill Farm and beyond our 50,000 acre partner growers, that we are effectively contributing 100% of the profit from Star Hill Farm whiskey to propel regenerative farming practices all over the world.
Wow.
So just today, if y'all have time, you can stop. They were meant to be here, but with the power outage, they had to go meet up in Loretto. But we have 30 farmers from Kentucky that are meeting, not our growers, not providing our grain, but farmers that are growing grain inputs for many of the best restaurants in Kentucky. They're meeting here, and we're funding all of their regenerative farming education and certification through Regenify. And then we want to bring the stories of why regenerative farming has to be the future. The research we see suggests globally, on average, there are only about 50 harvests left before the topsoil, on average, globally is completely wiped away. Never mind all of, polluting the water tables and all of the environmental impacts.
Pesticides and stuff.
All the pesticides, and the regenerative farming allows you to draw down the carbon in the soil. But we came into regenerative farming through flavor, wanting to start with the best ingredients, which the highest order of regenerative agriculture is rotational grazing, which is, if you have time, would love to have the team take you out on Star Hill Farm. We have 400 lamb on site, and 2 shepherds that are moving through the pastures with rotational grazing. But we've also created, would encourage you to walk out to the mother oak. Have you all heard about the mother oak?
Mm-hmm.
It's the University of Kentucky spent multiple years mapping the reference genome of Quercus alba for the first time from a 300+ year old American white oak tree to help build in resilience, strength to the species. And then the only single location in America where the entire American white oak species is planted on one location is here. We had a team of people fanning out. There are 23 states where American white oak is grown, and they collected acorns. And we've planted saplings, 30 each, of 500 different variations of American white oak.
Yeah, we were able to go out and see that.
Yeah, when we were here this spring.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this spring, one of your team
We
members,
saw the forest.
Yeah, was able to
It's
take
a
us
long-term vision.
out there. Yeah.
But you have to be, when you're in the whiskey business, you have, we really
You have to think long term, yeah.
I will say, I was able to obtain a bottle of this through one of our good friends. When we went up to Chicago, he was able to get one. And once I opened that, and it was able to breathe for a little, like I revisited after I opened it the next week. Honestly, it's in my opinion, and that doesn't mean it's everybody else. It's the best thing I've tasted this year. And I mean, the flavor is there. Mm-hmm. And as a wheat whiskey, it's fantastic. But the sweetness of that flavor, which is Maker's Mark, is there, and I absolutely love that bottle.
Well, thank you. We're proud of it. Proud of the restraint. It's so easy to fall in the trap of chasing trends.
Right.
And if it's for us, it was if we were to ever create a new style of whiskey, what would our founders have created? And I actually have all of the, my grandparents back in the 50s, when they were, exploring the idea of their flavor vision, they baked loaves of bread in the family kitchen. And I have my grandmother's notes, like her binder full of notes from heirloom varietals, different varietals of wheat. And we went through the same exercise. We baked loaves of bread here on site and decided that we were going to commit to doing everything we could to bring flavor back through agriculture and try to shift the conversation a bit in whiskey to, the whiskey in the glass comes from nature. And when you think about that in those terms, you get to flavor and then you get to the ethics of it all.
Has there been any research done on the effects of PFAS on whiskey flavors?
I think most of that the experts would say is distilled out, but we want to start with the best possible ingredients, and we are going to great lengths with not just here on Star Hill Farm, but the 50,000 acres, our 10 growers. Have you all seen the film Kiss the Ground? That's your homework.
Okay.
When you get back home, if you have Amazon Prime or Allison can send you a link, Kiss the Ground really lays out a compelling narrative on why regenerative farming has to be the future. They come at it more from an environmental perspective. We came into regenerative farming for flavor, but the farmer, the cattle rancher that's featured in Kiss the Ground, his name is Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown is a cattle rancher from North Dakota. It's 4,000 acres. Gabe, for decades, was managing his, multi-generational 4,000 acre property at the height of conventional farming and was nearly destitute. And he had to change. So Gabe has since been on the forefront of practicing regenerative agriculture, and Gabe started an organization called Understanding Agriculture. These conventional farming practices are handed down from one generation to the next. And Gabe is providing a resource for growers to learn his journey. Because, in the conventional model, the only stakeholder that really prospers are the chemical companies.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And, pretty quickly in a regenerative model, you end up with a very competitive yield. You build back life in the soil, so you're preserving the land for the next generation. And you spend, according to, Gabe's, all of his data suggests that within 24 months, the amount of inputs required is reduced by 50%. But we are making Gabe Brown and his company available to these hundreds of farmers to provide the education. And they're not working for us.
Yeah.
We pay all of the fees and the cost associated for Gabe and Understanding Ag to educate and inspire hundreds of farmers all over the world to embrace regenerative agriculture.
Well, you got 2 minutes.
Okay, so everybody, so we can to wrap up. You need to go out and buy way more Maker's Mark so that we can save the planet, right? So that will help. Every bottle, and you guys are putting that in there.
Yeah, this is not just focused on little small Star Hill Farm whiskey. We are role modeling these regenerative practices across all of Maker's Mark. First distillery that I know of in the world to have all of its fresh distillate certified by a third party as regeneratively grown and sourced. So I would encourage folks to learn more about Regenify, to watch Kiss the Ground. They launched this Earth Day, they launched a sequel called Common Ground, which is a call to action for business, private business, to lead the way to a regenerative future. And if we can do it, others can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting is Regenify, the certifying body, has seen a huge increase in the amount of companies and brands, not just in Kentucky, but all over the world, that have reached out to want to learn more about how to create a regenerative future.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Hey, who's-
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Who's been up to the lakeside before? You've been.
Yeah, I've been up.
Have you been up to the lakeside tasting? Who's been up there?
We've been lakeside.
We haven't
been
We
in the
haven't
building.
been, we've been lakeside, but we haven't been in the.
Yeah, we went to the lake.
Oh, you haven't been in the building yet?
No,
Yeah,
never
we
been
haven't
in
been
the building.
No.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna today. 'cause
Yeah,
that's
one of your
where-
team members took us up there. We actually
Yeah.
stood at the lake and actually had a taste of at the rock that's up there at the lake.
was the heart the special batch when you go on the
Heart release.
keepers.
The
Keepers.
keepers.
And then
So,
we had-
we've hosted visitors here on site since the beginning, but part of shifting the focus from manufacturing to include agriculture and nature, we've spent a lot of time the last 10 years trying to open up Star Hill Farm.
Yeah.
And offering experiences into nature. And one of those was, what if we built a tasting room for private select right on the edge of the water source? So folks like yourselves can start with your taste vision and design your perfect expression of Maker's Mark, but in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And did you stop the filming?
I'm gonna.
Wake up, sunrise and boots on the floor, working hard all day till you can't no more. Life rolls on, but the choice is yours, how you play it out when you walk through that door. One bottle, one drink, one pour. That's what the Scotchy Bourbon boys got in store. Tuesdays, Thursdays, come pull up a seat. We'll taste through the whiskey on the rocks and eat.